A couple more points I want to make on critical position zones. Try to keep them in your mind. They're easy enough once you get it. 17 to 21, 43 to 47. What is 17 from 43? 26. So what is, and then 3rd Street is 69 to 73. What is 69 minus 43? Remember 2nd Street was 43? 26. The last one, 4th Street, 95 to 99. 69 to 95, 26. So the zones are not really a contradiction of what DeLynn Culver taught with his theory of 26. They're extending it. They're extending that and trying to get people not to think of an individual whole, but thinking more in terms of this zone and getting deep into the zone as early as they can in the game, which will put a number of wins on your side of the ledger that would normally be lost. So, big deal. I do want to mention, you've got a paper there with an 8.5 up in the corner. The last paragraph, I'm going to be talking about good hands, poor hands, excellent hands. The last paragraph gives you some idea of what I'm talking about. A poor hand is one of 0 to 5. When I mention the average hand, 6 to 9. When I talk about a good hand, it's 10 to 13. If I say it's an excellent hand, it's 14 or more. So when I'm talking, I'll try to use these terms. Now, on the back of that are a few examples, and I'd like you to follow through with this. Stick a peg in hole 17, and presume your opponent is about the same place on the board, maybe 15, maybe, just almost shoulder to shoulder, same general area of the board. Now, where do you want to be? The person with 17 has the deal. Now, where do you want to be when you deal the next time? 43. I can tell where James has got his finger there. Is 43 minimum. So we're 17 now. And the next time we deal, we want to be at 43. So what does that take to get there? Now we pick up a good to excellent hand. We've got 10 to 14 points. If you got a 10-point hand and you're at 17, you know you're guaranteed a peg. You got a 10-point hand and a guaranteed peg, that's 11. That puts you at 28. You may know of some in the crib. You might have put a 6-9 and cut a 9. Gives you a huge advantage over your opponent. To know you got 6 points in the crib. So it's really important to remember what you discard and in relation to what's on the deck. Because that can affect how you would play that hand, to know that you've got 6 points in the crib. But if you had just 10 and a guaranteed 1 and a lousy discard to your crib, and the card on the deck doesn't make any points with the 2-point cards you put in your crib, then you've got to try to move down the board, right? Because you know you're going to be well shy of 43. But if you got 14 and a guaranteed peg, that puts you at 32. And if you know of 4 points in the crib, that puts you at 36. So you can play a little defensive. You won't need so many your next hand to reach good position to deal. So it's really important to think when you're dealing this time, where is it I need to be the next time I deal? And if you can get in the habit of doing that, it will improve your winning percentage a lot. Now, if you go down here to the third paragraph, the pegs are in the same spot to begin with, 17 or 16, 17 and 15. And you have an excellent hand. You've got a 16-point hand. So you play on because you want to approach that zone 43 to 47. Your opponent has no way to get there. But with a 16 hand, you've got a good chance to get real close to that zone. So don't play it safe. Your opponent does not benefit in this case from pegs. You do. So in the case where you're playing offense, you're not considering how many pegs you give up. You're considering how many you score. And if you score 4 and give up 3, the 3 didn't hurt you, but the 4 helped you. So it's very important if you're choosing an offense strategy to think of pegging in that way. Is that I'm just concerned with what I get. I'm not concerned with what I'm giving up. So if you're in a position where you're choosing defense, then you're thinking of what you give up only. If you choose a defense strategy, you're not counting any pegs that you might get. You're only taking away what your opponent got. So in the one, we're thinking only of the plus points because I'm playing offense. It's all plus. The crib is plus. The pegs are plus. My hand score is plus. If I'm playing defense, then the pegs are minus. They're the pegs scored by my opponent. So if the position on the board is that I play defense, then the most important thing I can do is minimize the pegs of my opponent. They are a minus. I'm not getting any credit for mine. I'm not playing for pegs. I'm playing to avoid pegs. So, and optimal would be in the middle. I want to take the safe pegs. And as dealer, that's often very easy to do. You can close the count at 31. You don't have to take a 15. Many times as a dealer, you shouldn't take a 15. If you've got good position and you're playing to defend your position and your opponent leads an 8 and you've got a 6, 7, 8 and a queen, you put the queen on it. You'll outpeg your opponent then because invariably they make the count 24 with the 6 and you play your 7 for 31. You didn't give up anything, but you got 2. That's good. That's good defense. So take a look at a couple of hands here. You might want to sort these out. Well, this is kind of a funny looking hand. Couple of aces, 3, 5, couple 5s and a king. Your position is 73. And your opponent is 74. Now, when you look at these cards, can you tell whose crib it is?
It's got to be the opponent's.
Exactly. when you end up with these kind of cards, isn't it? But hey, remember you're 73. Now, so you need to be 69 to 73 to deal. You're already there. Your opponent is one hole further. The challenge is to give your opponent a low-scoring crib. Stay away from pegs. They're at 74. They're one hole ahead of you on the board, but they're out of the zone already with the deal. So this strictly defense. What is the safest discard in this hand, considering I don't need points? You hear me say that a lot because you're very point-oriented. What's the safest discard among these six? King and a one. King and a one. Now that's a funny looking hand, but you don't need one.
You don't need them.
See? You might as well make the lowest scoring discard there is. Your opponent is already in position. You don't want to improve their position. If they get down the board, you want them to do so by the count of their hand, not by the count of the crib. Now, if you were looking at holding points, then would you throw the 1 and the 3? Or would you throw the pair of 1s?
Trying to make points, I'd throw the pair of aces because I might pick up a 4.
Okay, but see the difference. And that's very important. There are lots of times in a game where giving your opponent a low-scoring crib is more important than anything else you can do with your cards, is to keep the crib score low. Now, it's true that a king 1, if they discarded a deuce 3, but it's the best we got among these.
Yeah.
You have to deal with what the 6 you got. So among the 6 we got, the king and the 1 is the most likely to produce a low-scoring crib. And that's if folks were at 73 and 74. Dealer at 74, you don't have the deal and you're at 73. So if you look at that 74, you can give them 8 or 9 points. That would put them at 83 or 84. They're still going to need 11 to get to the 95 on 4th Street. But if you give them 5 or 6 in the crib, they don't need much at all. So keeping the crib small many times is the best thing you can do. Even though you look at your hand and you say, oh my, I got 6, and if I cut that third 5, I got a 14. You know it doesn't matter. If you cut that third 5 for 14, you're still at 88. See? So you need to be at 95. You can't get there. So the best thing you can do in those cases is to slow your opponent down, and you do that through avoiding the pegs and trying to keep the crib score low. Those two things you have control of. Now this is an interesting hand. I play this one quite a bit. Your opponent, let's go ahead. This is a nice endgame situation. Your opponent is counting first, and they're at hole 117. And you're the dealer at 115. Okay? You're 6 points from winning. How can you win?
There you go.
That's the only way, right? Well, I mean, you might luck out and deal a hand of less than 4 points, but I don't think you can plan on that.
Right.
So here's what we pick up as the dealer. We got a 1, a 2, a 6, 7, a 9, and a jack. Now, there are 6 pegs here, possible. Like if your opponent was holding maybe 2 face cards with a 5 and a 7. That's all they had. They needed 4, they got 4. So the way you would do that, or if they even, it doesn't matter, but you need to have 2 cards that would trap the 5, and you need to have 2 cards that would make 31. Well, this is ideal, because if they lead a 10 card, you would make the count 19.
Provided that it wasn't 10, doesn't matter.
I don't think it matters. The only way you can win is peg. So you put the 9. If it's a 10 spot or a jack or a queen or a king, it's nice if it's a king or a queen, but if it's not, you still make it 19, assuming that they got a 5 to go with a 10-pointer. And then you make 31. If they get the run, they got 3, they didn't get 4. And then they have to play, and you trap their 5 between the 6 and the 7. You can do this with the 4 and the 6 too, by the way. If the 9 deuce 4 6, which is a pretty common hand. Look for these if you need 6 pegs. If you're looking for them, you'll be surprised how often you find them. The Lynn Culvert is a master at doing that because he's looking for them. Anyway, this is a classic here, and the 2 4 6 9 works the same way. But with the 2 4 6 9 with the 4 6 on the end, you get the 15 5 plus the last card is 6 alone on that play, and you already had 2 on this one. But sure, it takes some help from your opponent. They got 4 points. If they've got they keep a double run or something, it's not going to work. But if they keep 10 pointers with a 5 to get their 4 points, king, queen, 5 7 could be, whatever. These work really nice. Be looking for them. And remember, we didn't really throw anything away. See, that's what we discarded to our crib. We didn't think we were going to get to our crib anyway. See, we were playing to win the game by pegging. So, and you can do that, but you got to be looking for them. Looking for these, a 3 and an 8, a 3 and an 8, with a 4 6, works the same way. 3 8 with a 4 6, look for those. The 11, 2-card 11 when you're dealing is a nice pegging arrangement. You get to close the count at 31 a lot of the time. And then you've got 2 cards that pick up a 5 if they got a 5. All righty? I want to review just a couple little things here. Give me the whistle if we get, what time you got, Mike? I left my watch at home.
7:35.
Okay. It's been quite a while since we talked about discarding to own crib. In fact, remember we did that before we talked about discarding to opponent's crib. And you remember the first, how that went? The high scoring discards to your own crib. 5 5, deuce 3, 5 jack, 5 6, 5 king, 5 10, 5 queen, 4 5. And I think I said at that point, you don't really need to know all 91, but you ought to know these. So if you're going to focus on memorizing discards, it's probably an exercise in futility to try to figure out the placement and the averages for all 91. But if you could just settle on those 8 and have them clear in your mind and be looking for them when you're dealing. If you're looking for them, you'll be surprised how often they're available. Now, half the time, and this again goes with position, half of the time you're going to just dump garbage to your crib. That's what is. You got a hand that works. You got 2 3s and 2 6s and a king queen. I mean, what do? And you put the king queen in your crib, you probably got a good chance not to get a 5 or a jack. But there ain't nothing you can do with them other 4. They got to stay right here. So it's gone. Sometimes it'll be a 10 king, a 9 king to your own crib. And you'll agonize. Some people agonize for a while. Don't make them any different. They're just what they are. Half the time you can't do a thing for yourself. The other thing, when you're discarding your opponent's crib, again, you don't need to know all 91 discards as far as their average goes. You might have a general idea of how they fall, but you ought to know that a 10 king and a 9 king are at the top of the list, and a 9 queen and a 6 king are the next 2. And so when you look at the discards would have low averages to your opponent's crib, they are those that include a face card and a middle card. You get down a ways, 10 or so, you start stumbling into king 1 or queen 1. You get down a ways, got to get down the list of ways. So the middle card with the 10-pointer, with some distance between them if possible, is by far the lowest scoring discard, and you get a high percentage of cribs of 2 or less points. When you're looking at a 10 king, it scores 2 or less points 45% of the time. Now it's true the rest of the time it scored 8 or more. There's nothing in between. Not much in between. So when it bites you, it's 12, it's 14, it's 16. But if you're looking for that small crib, it gets more of them, and more zeros by far than anything else. So if you're going for the small crib, don't overlook the 10 king. And if you remember, as we went through from the discarding, we went into the pegging. And there's some classic hands and that you might pick up. As a non-dealer, we'll talk about some of them because the non-dealer has such a tough time pegging. This is a nice hand here for the non-dealer. If you need pegs, you lead the 8. What kind of a response does the 8 cause most folks to drop on it?
7.
A queen, 10-point card, a queen, it's common. We make the count 18. You make 22. They got a 5 most likely with the card. They make 27. You make 30 for 3 and it goes 4. Now if you're playing defense with this hand, then you lead the 4. You split the lower sequence, split that lower run just to break it up. You don't need, maybe you got 14 on the cut and you already had good position on the board. Then you split the lower run and save this to get away. If they play on your card here, you have this to play away. So the hand plays reasonably well either way. Defensively, I mentioned before, I like the 8 because it allows you to play the hand either way quite well. But if you were just playing defense and you had the choice of keeping the 8 or the 7 is better because of the 4 lead. If it gets paired, you can play the 15. It doesn't work. It doesn't work well at all if you lead the 7 with these 3 cards, whereas the 8 does. The 7 doesn't give you that option. So 2, 3, 4, 6. How many of you recognize that as a great pegging hand for the non-dealer? 2, 3, 4, 6. One of the best in cribbage. You lead the 3. High percentage of the time, the count goes to 13. You make 15 with a deuce, it goes 25, you make 31 with a 6. 1, 4, 5, 6. Wonderful. Throw the king 9 away. Throw the 10 king away. Keep the 1, 4, 5, 6. You lead the 1. And you get the 15 for 2, plus the 31 for 2, and now they got the lead and you got the 5. Most likely they got 10-point cards because you already scored the 15 and the 31. So now they got a lead and you're sitting with a 5. So very often you get 6 unanswered pegs with a 1, 4, 5, 6. Don't look at the hand and decide, well, I like to keep the 9 with this. I like to keep the 9 with this because it's 15, 2, 15, 4, and 3 is 7. Whereas if I throw the 9 away, I only got 5. The pegs more than make up for the 2 points you tossed away. Look for it as non-dealer. 1, 4, 5, 6. 2, 3, 4, 6. There are very few hands in cribbage that give the non-dealer a pegging advantage. The dealer has a big, big hammer when it comes to pegging. So, play for them. Look for them. If you're looking for them, you'll be surprised how often they're there. 2, 3, 4, I see it every week in club. They've got a 2, 3, 4, 6 with a king, queen. But somehow they're afraid to throw a king, queen. And so they destroy the best pegging hand in cribbage for the non-dealer, or one of them. 1, 4, 5, 6 might be better. They destroy it at the beginning by discarding the 6 king, which is a lower scoring discard. But the pegs that you get on average with the 2, 3, 4, 6 far exceed the difference between the 6 king and the king queen. Same, look for it. 8, 2, 3, 4 is a nice hand for the non-dealer. On the other hand, some of you noticed in double run hypnosis that there were a couple of double runs that I left out. There was a reason they were left out, and I want to tell you what the reason was. If you got this small double run with 2 aces on the end of it, on the low end, 2 aces with a deuce 3, a 4, and 2 face cards, and it's your crib, the deuce 3 should be there every time. 1, 1, 4 with a 2, 3 in the crib should be every time. But not so if it was 1, 2, 3, 4, 4 with a face card. Because what happens with those others, the 2, 3, 4, 4, and the 1 with the face card, the pegging potential for the dealer with the 3, 4, 4, the 3 card 11, which gives a 31 for 4 a whole lot of the time with a pair of 4s. Because you make the count 27 and they can't play their 5, so they say go. 31 for 4. So the pegging with that one makes it better to hold that double run than to toss the deuce 3. But if the double in the run are aces, the bottom of the deck, then the 2, 3 is exactly correct. So there's so many nuances to this game, but pick out a few of them and recognize they have value. I want to emphasize again these magic 11s, the 4 card 11s that have the potential for so many pegs for the dealer, because they are available sometimes, and when they are, you have a chance to score a bunch of pegs. And remember that there's 3 deuces and a 5, 3 3s and a deuce, and 3 1s and an 8. And what was the other one? No, that's the 3 that result in really big pegs. If your opponent has a double run of face cards, what happens with the 8 and the 3 1s? You put the 8 on any 10-point card they put down. If they got a 5, they get away. But hey, there's quite a few times folks play 10 double run of face cards. double run of 10-pointers. So you put even on a 9 lead, you would put the 8. 17, 27, 28, go 29 for 2, 30 for 6, and it goes 7. If they got all 10-point cards, it's going to be 31 for 8. You're going to close the count. With a 5 and 3 deuces, they lead the 10, you make 15. They might pair your 5, doesn't matter. Well, it makes a difference of a point maybe. No, I don't think it does even. It doesn't make a difference. They pair the 5, so they get 2. And then you play the first deuce for 22, and they say go, and you play the second one for 24, and the third one for 26, and a go. So you got 6 and 2 is 8. 1 9 pegs, you gave up 2. Now, if they don't have the 5, you don't give up any. You get the 15 for 2, they make 25, you make 27. Go 29 for 2, 31 for 8. Oh, thank you. That's terrific. And the 3, 3, 3, and a deuce. Remember, we always got to, as a dealer, we want to keep these triples together. Because as a dealer can get any set of triples in back to back.
Triple face
To back. Any of them. And remember, there was only 3 or 4 that worked for the non-dealer. So a huge advantage. If you've got a triple in your dealing, hang on to them to see how the wind blows. You'll be surprised how often they'll work. With the 3 3s and the deuce, the lead is a 10. We make the count 12. They say 22. We say 25. No 5 spot we're in like Flynn. If they say go, we say 28 for 2, 31 for 8. Now, if you drop the 5 in there, what does it make the count? So I played my deuce, and they made 22, 25, 30. See, they escape if they got a 5. But if they got all 10-point cards, they're dead. So try it. You'll find that sometimes it does work. But it won't work ever if you don't try it. If you look at a game and you're 20 points, 15 points out, no chance to win, you figure? Look at that. Might be the chance to win. Might be. So the idea is to win. Sometimes you have the cards to win if you play them. If you play timidly and you break the triple on the first play, hey, it's done. And by the way, that happens all the time. People who have good pegging hands, many times the first card they play destroys the pegging opportunity. First one to hit the table. So, any questions? You know, I think I've covered what I want to cover, and hopefully you'll share this information with a neighbor, or go down to your local school and teach the 6th grade class how to play cribbage. You've got a suitcase full of material now. You can act like an expert. And I'll tell them you're one, too. You can tell them that, and I'll lie for you. Okay. Okay.
How about all these people that are getting this wisdom online and we play them in a tournament and they beat us because you taught them?
Oh, it's kind of amusing what Jim just had to say, because I've heard that a long time over the years. Is why would you want to teach anybody anything about this game? The idea is to beat their butts. Yeah. Well, do you know, I kind of have this thought that withholding information that ought to be shared is some kind of a power trip that I'm not interested in. But there are people, in fact, you've run into them. DeLynn Culver wrote a very good book. But have you asked DeLynn Culver a few questions, technical, about how to play cribbage? Well, it's all luck. Why did you spend the time writing a book? It's all luck. Oh, what? No, very, there are very few players. Paul Hatcher in Salem is one of the players who's always been willing to share everything that he figures he knows about the game. And he was always willing to sit down and play on the side with anybody that wanted to play. And so my view has always been that if I seem to know it, and I'm still learning it, so when I tell you something, it isn't always going to work 100% of the time. It'll work most of the time, but it's not going to work every time. Some of you have already found that out. I walk up to you when you're in the middle of playing a card, and I say, no, not that one, play this one. And you play that one, and your opponent hammers you. I shouldn't have listened to him. Shouldn't have listened to him. I've just always believed that sharing information on the widest scale possible is healthy for the game of cribbage. It's part of what this organization has been dedicated to. The playing tips on www.cribbage.org allow you access to all the cribbage authors and a number of links to this wonderful game. And you can't spend too much time on the wonder of this game. So keep on pegging. See you in 5 years.
You're the wonder of this game. You are.
Thank you.